Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to the F1 Weekly News Show, where we give you the roundup of the latest news from the world of F1 over the past week. And so we have some big stories this week for you to get through. We have 8 stories to cover in total. So I'll go through as usual. I'll state the story. The links to the news stories will be in the description below. And you guys can obviously read the full thing. But I'll give the headline and then obviously give my opinion on the news as well. But guys, if you are new around here, don't forget you can subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification, and you can keep up to date with all our latest content just like this one. But let's get into the news. So the first story, which was a breaking news video that came out last week, is the huge news that Racing Point will become Aston Martin in 2021. It is fantastic to have a team like Aston Martin back in F1. Yes, obviously it's not a full works team. Obviously I think Racing Point will still be powered by the Mercedes engine going into 2021, but Aston Martin and Mercedes are kind of linked anyway, so it kind of makes sense. But it's the brand, it's the name of having Aston Martin. I imagine it will attract a lot of support to the team of Racing Point, and this has been one of the most fantastic factory teams in terms of creating a great car from the limited resources available to them. Vijay Mallya obviously was in contact with Lawrence Stroll as well, congratulating him on the deal, and I think it makes Racing Point, soon to be Aston Martin, a really exciting team to look out for in 2021. Moving on to the second story, and this is a big news story from today. I waited to record because Jack Aitken was making an announcement at 11, and it is big. He has become the reserve driver for Williams, and his first one to kind of get a look in the car at Williams will be in FP1 in Australia. So this is fantastic, and it really opens up if things fall into place. I think a lot of people think George Russell will be in Mercedes in 2021. So that vacates a seat at Williams. Latifi, with the money he's bringing in, and if he has a solid season, you would expect to stay in the Williams seat, but to partner him, you now have 2 options. Obviously, you have Jack Aitken now becoming the reserve driver if he impresses in this role, and I believe a bit like Lance Stroll did, I don't think he has enough super license to be in F1, but I believe Lance made up that gap by doing testing, so I'm sure there'd be a way of figuring out that one if they wanted to give him the seat. And the second driver is obviously Dan Ticktum, who joined the Williams Academy and will be racing in F2. So it will be an interesting fight to see who gains that seat in 2021. But yeah, big news for Jack. Obviously earlier had announced that him and Renault had split ways, and now that deal, well, him and Renault splitting weights makes a lot of sense, because if I was Jack Aitken, going up against Dan Ticktum, obviously with his checkered past, yes, he does have fantastic ability, but it's only one person he's got to try and beat for that seat. Where if he stayed at Renault, he was directly competing against Guan Yu Zhao, which obviously is a very talented driver, also has the fact that he's from China, so the PR wise on his background as well, and then the very talented Christian Lundgaard, who will be racing ART this year. I think he's hedged his bets, and he feels his bets are better hedged with Williams as a route into F1 than it was to Renault. Like me and Aldas discussed in the which F1 team are F1B teams good for F1, Renault don't really have a clear path for their juniors into F1. So great news for Jack on that one. Fernando Alonso was back in the news. He did an interview with F1 Racing Mag, and there were lots of things to come out of it. There were obviously Hamilton has weaknesses that his rivals aren't exploiting at the moment. He regrets the comments made about the Honda engine. Obviously he still wants to come back in to F1 in 2021 and feels like that's where he really wants to achieve, and he really wants to kind of achieve that third world title. Fernando Alonso, he's Marmite. I love him. People hate him. I obviously, last week, it was something that was building up for a while, decided, I think it was like a 16 tweet thread on why I think, I don't get basically the reasons why people dislike him, but we're all F1 fans, we're going to have an opinion. You can't have everyone like you. I personally think it would be a good thing for F1, as he is an incredibly talented driver still, and would, improve the quality of the grid if he returned. A lot of people think, they want to give places for young talent. Fernando's had his time, and, really he should kind of carry on doing what he's doing in terms of racking up achievements in other forms of motorsport. But, hey, we'll wait and see on this one. But as always, when Fernando Alonso is in the news, he is a decisive figure. Now, there was some big news a couple of days ago that the Formula E race in Sanya has been cancelled, obviously in China, and yeah, obviously due to the coronavirus that is currently, in the news a lot in terms of risk. F1 obviously there for the Chinese Grand Prix, I believe it's on April the 19th, it's around about there. But anyway, it's less than 60 days away. I'd expect to hear a kind of thought from F1 and whether they cancel it very soon, if they are going to do it. It's balancing that risk of, do you want to spread the virus? You have a lot of employees, there's a whole F1 circus that goes along. If someone picks it up there, they can increase the spread and then make it worse. Or, there's the things that you could go, it could have settled down by then, and by April 19th everything could be under control, and then we've lost a Grand Prix that was planned, and people who have by this stage probably bought tickets for it, booked hotels and everything, do they want to miss them out? At the end of the day on this one, health and safety has to come first. So yeah, fingers crossed it's under control by a point. They have to make an announcement, but I would not be surprised if the Chinese Grand Prix is postponed. Now, it's 2 weeks in a row for Pirelli. Last week we were talking about Pirelli tyres. They wouldn't test on a race weekend again. This time they're saying with the 18-inch tyres being introduced for the 2021 season, if the F1 teams do not like them, there is no going back. I mean, it's pretty obvious, this one, in terms of self-explanatory. But yes, the full news story is in the description below. It's basically Pirelli going, they're going to have to suck it up, because the 18-inch rim tyres, there is no going back to the 13-inch ones in the 2021 season. Our next news story is about Ferrari, and Binotto was talking in the news today that he is not very good at playing F1 politics, and they were caught out by the other teams in 2019. Obviously, this is in the main regards to the whole palaver that was around the Ferrari engine. I mean, we still don't know if anything was wrong with that, if they were doing something wrong. We don't know if it was completely legit. I presume we'll see come the kind of start of the 2020 season, if Ferrari still have their pace advantage, then it was just kind of smokes and daggers almost, in terms of just creating news to kind of distract people away from Ferrari and giving credit to Ferrari's performance and trying to put pressure on them and beat them down, which obviously Red Bull were the main instigators of this one. So yes, Binotto was like, I need to improve how I play the game a little bit more, because he believes, obviously you would at Ferrari, they've created a fantastic engine, a fantastic product, from being way behind in 2014. In now 2019 season, their engine certainly in terms of out and out power was the best on the grid. He's going to be hoping that in 2020 people talk less about it cheating and maybe more about it just being a fantastic engine that Ferrari have built. Next news story is in regards to the French Grand Prix. A lot of people thought this was the most mundane and dull Grand Prix. A lot of people think that is overhyped. But I think a lot of people would agree that changes need to be made to Paul Ricard. And obviously we've spoken about it in the previous F1 Weekly News that they are planning to change. But in particular, there has been talks of changing or moving or getting rid, less complicating the Mistral chicane after the main straight. Because it's been a lot of complaints in terms of it makes it difficult to overtake. It doesn't really add anything on the racing. Yes, it is obviously more of a technical challenge for the drivers, but it has taken away from overtaking opportunities for the drivers, which obviously within a Formula 1 race we want to see overtaking opportunities, we want to see on-track battles. So this is something that probably will be changed and hopefully will lead to better on-track racing. And the last story today is, as one driver, obviously not in F2, I presume Jack Aitken, with that news, will not be racing in F2 next year. With one driver whose Formula 1 future was limited to one season with Williams, where, in my opinion, he didn't do bad for his rookie season. He was in a Williams car that was on the decline. He was unlucky in some races that he was, but I think he showed that he was competent within it. Obviously losing out to his teammate Lance Stroll at the time. But Sergej Sirotkin has basically said, at 23, 24 years old, he has to come to the realisation that his dream that he's been chasing of being a Formula 1 driver is basically over. And yeah, it's pretty sad, and he's pretty open and honest about how it's pretty tough coping with those feelings. Obviously he was Renault's reserve driver last year, but it very much looks like that Sergej has become the forgotten man, and that his time in F1 and a seat in F1 looks, like it's a step too far for him now. But guys, that has been the F1 Weekly News Show. Hope you've enjoyed the stories. As always, get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think of the stories, that have been out there today. I won't dare say what are your opinions on Fernando Alonso, but again, I would love to hear your thoughts on kind of Aston Martin joining the sport in 2021. Jack Aitken, obviously becoming Williams' reserve driver, would love to hear that. Do you think about Ferraris in the politics game? How they need to do that. And also, probably a big one, do you think the Chinese Grand Prix will be postponed or not? That is very big, and if so, how soon will we know when it is postponed? But guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. You can let us know that you've enjoyed it. And like I said at the start of the video, you can subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification, and you can keep up to date with all our latest content, just like this video. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.